Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Do More with Less, where we talk to the world's top marketing leaders and thinkers to understand and share how individuals and teams are best responding to that very blunt instruction to do more with less. Today, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by my mate Morag Cuddeford-Jones, who has been in my life for around, I think, about 20 years as one of the most resilient and most dedicated journalists looking at our world of marketing and brand and comms and engagement and growth for very many of the top marketing periodicals and magazines. And right now, we've been in touch in recent times because you are, for how long now, Morag, the editor of Catalyst, which is the magazine of the Chartered Institute of Marketing?
It has been coming up for 7 years, and they
Right,
still haven't
okay.
booted me out.
And every now and again, you put out an appeal on LinkedIn saying, I need, and I always check to see if what you need is me, and it very rarely is. But I love seeing you. How are you?
I am incredibly well, all the better for talking to you, Mark.
Thank you. We are going to talk about how to avoid getting absolutely stunning PR, right? We're going to talk about all the things that marketers do in B2B and otherwise to sideswipe the benefit of brilliant PR.
Absolutely. And there are so many of them out there that are excelling. I think we should champion this.
Do you know what? There is actually increasingly a call, certainly in B2B marketing, for founder-led marketing. And it drives me crazy because I think founder-led marketing is a brilliant idea and a brilliant channel. And if you do it right, it's incredibly powerful. But I also think that we haven't ever set down a playbook or a rule book or a kind of recipe for what makes great founder-led marketing. And I think most comms professionals who introduce the idea of we'd love our founder to be on, or we'd love a campaign built around our founder, they always come up with this phrase, which is, oh, don't worry about him or her. They'll sit in front of the screen. They can talk forever. And you go, that's not actually what you need here. Or, you know, they know everything. They're a real thought leader. And it's like, And so there's a number of different ways. You and I were talking about it in the last couple of days, in which founders almost sabotage. No, maybe not even founders. Marketing and comms departments around founders almost sabotage the opportunities they've got by putting this authentic storyteller in front of the camera and letting it go for broke. What are some of the things you see that they get wrong? Hello, sorry to interrupt. Do More with Less is a podcast and a webinar and a set of events that's made possible entirely by marketing resource group Orbital X. If you would like to know how we credibly claim many millions of pounds worth of pipeline influenced by our marketing resource group support and up to 60% of your closed-won deals, give us a call, half an hour with one of us. Really happy to talk to you and explain how that works and how it might look for your business. Thank you for allowing this interruption. Back to the podcast.
I think there are two key issues here. First of all, you have big founder energy with little founder capability. Someone who thinks, just as you've described, they are going to be the big kahuna on stage. They're going to rock this panel or kill this TED Talk. And as you've just said, they just get up there and ramble or waffle or think they have thoughts, not an idea in their head.
Yeah.
The other issue is the flip side, where you've got a great founder, someone who's got a brilliant story to tell, just clams up.
Yeah.
Just can't do it. There are ways of dealing with both of these, but we really, really need to deal with them because not everyone is a Branson. Not everyone is a Jobs. They were two guys who could just stand up and nail it. And if you
Every time. Yeah.
if you aren't that person, you're going to need some training, baby.
And do you do the trade, like when you are doing a call out for founders or professionals with a certain use case or case study that you want to highlight, do you find yourself, is it part of the editor's job now to do the training to help prepare?
It's not necessarily doing the training. I can't train them in a pre-call or a two or five set of emails. What I can do is outline For the comms professionals, what I need them to do, I do the research. I know who they are. I know their story. I know the bits of their story I'd really like them to highlight. Hell, I could probably do the interview for them if we're honest. But what I really want is the comms professional to prep them, give them some structure, give them an idea of what it is I need to know.
When we first started talking about this, and we were thinking about what we might go into, you came up with a couple of interesting use cases, which was the ones that turn up at conferences and spout a million cliches, have everyone on LinkedIn soaping them up afterwards for their nuggets of inspiration. They've got nuggets, all right, but they ain't inspiring, was your word. I mean, you still speak like a journalist. I learned to find ways of not speaking so much like a journalist when I got into the other side. But the other thing is, you said stop sending, and we're allowed to use language here, Morag, on this podcast. So you said stop sending me shit op-eds designed by committee, or if you send me one more quote saying your brand's driven by being obsessed by the customer, I absolutely will throttle you with your own speaker lanyard. Now, for all readers, Morag's as gentle as they come. She drives a hard bargain editorially, but she's an absolutely wonderful person. None of you are in any danger here. You'll be taken in by her soft Scottish brogues and also her charm. But so she's not going to throttle anyone. But tell me about that when you are given so many opportunities by people writing to you and saying, we've got a story for you, but you can see straight away this is going to be way more hassle and work than the story's worth. What should we be doing about it as professionals? How should we approach you because you're not just a Catalyst, you're also a freelance writer for a host of marketing magazines, and PR still remains one of the most, when you get it right, one of the most powerful advocacy, engagement, endorsement, brand awareness channels, right? So how should we be approaching you?
Totally. I've got to say up front, PRs are a journalist's best friend. And I don't know any PRs, well, I may have known them, but I don't know them anymore, who don't know their job. They are suffering friendly fire from within. They know what a journalist needs. The problem is they rarely get it from inside. They know we need an actual opinion, but an actual opinion that's backed up by some pretty fiery content. Don't give me the same imblandification that everybody says. If you say you're talking about authenticity, I will get that lanyard. I will approach with malice. There's all that jargonese. Get rid of it. Tell me what you really think. And I know I can hear the risk management, crisis management professionals going, no, the last thing we want to hear is what this person really thinks.
Yeah.
But it matters. Give us a point of view that's backed up in fact.
Yeah.
We've already sworn once. Opinions are like arseholes. Everyone's got one.
Yeah.
I want to know what's different here.
Yeah.
I want to know why you're going to shake the tree and some great stuff is going to fall out. And they are frightened to do it. I've met these people in person. I've talked to them. They are funny. They're earnest. They're clever. And when an op-ed written by them or written by their comms person and then battered by committee comes to me in these unprecedented times, quote marks, I just want to weep.
Next generation, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Do you know what? I'll give you two examples that I will never, ever let go of, because one is startling and the other is vomit inducing. When I was at Marketing Week, before I was editor and I was a cub reporter on my way up, just desperately trying to put stories in front of our news editor, Sanu, that wasn't going to get me shouted at. I had a really, really good story that I unearthed myself, and it was about a really very, very popular biscuit and confectionery brand in the UK. And I phoned the comms office and said, "Listen, this is going to be if you want it, this is our splash this week. This is our lead story. All I need to know is X, Y, Z. But honestly, you've done a great job. This is the reason you're going to be in all the magazines this week." And they looked at it and said, "No, thanks." I said, "What do you mean, no, thanks?" And they said, "We don't want to talk about that." It's like, but it is any way you look at it, this is a resounding success. This is only good news. I've looked at it myself. There's no bad way. Honestly, if there was bad news, I'd be jumping on it. But there's no bad news way to. This is you being innovative, different, distinct. I can make you famous, baby. And they said, we'd rather just pass on this one. You go, and I still never understood it to this day. It's like, you literally gave up. PR is your job. You're the PR comms department of this brand. It's literally your job to see your brand in print, and you gave it up. I never really understood that one. What I did understand was the one that can make. I'm looking forward to seeing the death rise in your eyes as I tell you this. But when I got into B2B technology, where, to be fair to them, comms and PR wasn't. It didn't come naturally to them. Back in sort of, this was 2014, 2015, when I started my time in B2B SaaS, I found that really, really good marketing, really authoritative, credible, instinctive marketing did not come naturally. And it was something, that's why I had an opportunity, basically. It was like, I can tell you some stuff you don't know. And I got a call from one of my company founders, who I hope is not watching this episode. And he said, listen, can you get me in Wired Magazine? You've got contacts at Wired Magazine, right? I said, I know David Rowan, the editor, but what's the story? He said, well, here's the story, Mark. We are the company du jour. And I went,
What?
I said, what? He said, we are the company du jour, the company of the day in French. I was still not getting the story though. What's the actual story? Mark, we are the company du jour. Why do you keep saying that? Why do you keep saying those words? Well, I had a friend over to dinner the other night, and he said to me, you are the company du jour. So I'm thinking that must be the story. I said, right, listen, just in very, very, just for, as an aside, in a very Morag Cuddeford-Jones way, if you keep saying those words, I am going to have to be violent. But you have to understand that we need a story to get into Wired. Now, there are probably loads of stories we can investigate if you want to sit and go and have a proper working session. And he said, well, how come our direct competitor had a story in Wired last week? And I said, well, because they have a Barack Obama story. They are the company that did personalization that was hired by the Barack Obama team the first time he got elected. And this was an investigation into just how the personalization technologies around were helping people like Obama get elected. Listen, if you've got a Barack Obama story, tell it to me now. But until we have one, we can't just walk into Wired. And this is one of those things where you kind of go, even though to you and me, it should be quite obvious. If you have a brilliant story, there isn't a way to do. There isn't like, Mark, you know something I know about PR. How do you pitch to? You just phone get a number of a journalist that you've decided has an interest in this. Maybe that takes some research. Maybe it's obvious. Phone them up and just pitch them down the phone. If you've got a story, the rest will take care of itself. But there seems to be a blank canvas between us and everybody else. They seem to think we know something they don't. They seem to think there's a magic or an art or a science to doing this that they can never know. And by the way, I don't even know if you can tell me if PRs are still a thing certainly in B2B where I work. You know, somebody was asking me about head of comms positions in-house. It's like I hear more about marketing now. I don't hear about head of. Do PR people still exist? Skilled PR people, is that still a thing?
Yeah, totally. Totally skilled PR people are still a thing. And I rely on them as a lifeblood when I'm not having a panic and asking LinkedIn to solve my copy deadline crisis. They're the absolute lifeblood. They're the ones who can identify the stories. They're the ones who know who does what beat, who is interested in something, what's going to trigger get my juices flowing when it comes to a story. There again, the friendly fire issue. The problem is then taking it back to the business and saying, this is what a story looks like. The amount of press releases I get for appointments. Number one, Catalyst doesn't even carry an appointments section. So that's not interesting. Number two, why do I care? Somebody got a job, big whoop. I love that somebody got a job. Don't get me wrong. I'm not cold-hearted. But why does it matter to my readers? What do they want to know about it?
Is there a caveat to that? Is that interesting if it is someone of Steve Jobs level fame suddenly gets a job?
I guess like it would be the England manager
Yeah,
resigning or
yeah,
something. When it's something that impactful. But I don't think we even put it in news when Mark Reed took over at WPP.
yeah,
I wanted to know what he was going to do.
yeah,
Not that somebody in a suit has now been appointed to a job that needs somebody in a suit. I want to know what's going on.
yeah. And in knowing what's going on, if I want to pitch to you something about my business today, what should I be thinking about? So I suppose we have a new product launch, but your view would be, well, everybody's got a product.
Yeah, I don't give
Or
a stuff about
we have a new appointment on our board that has done some great stuff before. And you said, well, look, everybody's got a board, and they'll all boast that their board is, carrying some heavyweight sort of sensibility and experience and firepower. So, what are we looking for here?
Let me give you an example. Very few companies in this day and age have a product that didn't exist before, even in AI.
Yeah,
Okay. Very few companies don't have, if not one competitor, 5, 10. Product is out there. The product that does something is not news and is not in itself interesting. What is interesting about your company is either the problem your product solves and how it does that a different way, or in B2B in particular, because of such long purchasing cycles, because you need to establish a relationship with your customer and your potential customer. We need to know so much more about you as a company. We need to know about the culture. And I know that is bandied about ridiculously, but culture matters. So let me
why
give
does
you an
culture
example.
matter to you? Yeah, that's interesting to me.
Well, culture doesn't necessarily matter specifically to me. I'm just the journalist. I'm writing it. I believe the culture matters to your customers. Let me explain why. As a B2B company, you're probably going to be doing business, a lot of business, with another company for a while. You want that relationship to last. The product is going to work. That's hygiene. The relationship between the people is important. Now, I was digging into what companies might mean something to people. And I came across Suresh Balaji, who's the group CMO at Lloyd's. Is Lloyd's a new product? No, it's banking. Is the story about its product important? No, I bloody hope it can do some good banking. It must have been doing that. It's been around for more than a century. You know? What do I care about Lloyd's if I'm going to have a working relationship? Is their culture? Who do they value? What are their values? And I know this is talked about so many times on such a surface level, but I think this is important. One of his big stories that came up is that he set up a male allyship working group within Lloyd's. And that is so important because banking is a hostile environment for women. Still is, always has been. It's a hostile environment for banking clients. Male allyship is all about not just going, oh, well, I'll be nice to women. It's about standing up for women in other environments. And very few people do that. And so that as a story for Lloyd's is a really important one to a business journalist because that talks about so much more than the pounds and pence of what it actually does on the daily for its client.
That's really interesting because if you say Lloyds Bank to me, I've never worked for Lloyds Bank, never been in banking, certainly never been. I've served products and services that have been there for big banks, but I've never been close to that sector. But you said Lloyds Bank to me in our country, for listeners abroad, Lloyds Bank is one of those really sort of English financial regal institutions. And so if you say Lloyds Bank to me, the first image that comes to mind is kind of, even though it's outdated, is black pinstripe suit and bowler hat.
Exactly thought that. I said mine had an umbrella,
Oh, yeah, the umbrella. Yes, of
a
course, the
long
umbrella.
umbrella with a hook.
Yeah. But then if you think about, and if you think about everything that that image says to women wanting to work in that sector in 2026, that already feels, if not uncomfortable and exclusive, it certainly feels a bit alien and weird. So, and yeah, I can see why um, somebody writing to you from Lloyd's Bank talking about a new product to do with pounds and pence, like that's your freaking job. That really is what you're meant to be doing. It would be news if you weren't doing pounds and pence, right? Um,
Exactly.
whereas CEO or CMO of Lloyd's Bank setting up a male allyship group is a really interesting use of somebody's time at the very, very top of one of our big institutions. Yeah,
And he is at the very, very top of his role. He is the group CMO.
Yeah.
So this is not some brand manager who set up a passion project.
Yes.
This is the dude in charge of all of Lloyd's marketing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he is taking the time to do, I believe it was monthly, but don't quote me on that, events. Like not just sending an email, doing events, getting speakers in, getting the
Yeah.
company together to talk about it, employing within the company other male allies representatives.
Yeah.
And we've got there's another reason why this is important. We're thinking about PR from a perspective of got to sell a product, got to sell a product, got to sell a product. You aren't going to be making a good product if you don't have great staff.
Yeah.
And this is why, Mark, we were talking for Catalyst a couple of months ago, wasn't it? The war for talent,
Yes.
because talent is A, struggling to be found because those junior layers are going, but B, great talent is really hard to find and it can be picky. If you want someone at a senior level who's great, you've got to fight for them, not the other way around. And if your company isn't showing itself to be multifaceted, interesting, innovative, caring, and not in a fluffy way, useful part of society, people don't want to work for you.
Yeah.
And so that is another really important part of this whole PR comms marketing journey. Stop thinking about it as bloody selling.
It's interesting. So far, we've talked about unpreparedness in spokespeople. We've talked about and I don't know what you do about this, but there is certainly something you can do about being sort of bland and boring and sort of beige and pitching a story that literally any of your competitors could pitch. So there's then thinking about the failure to really craft a story. There's the problem of leading with our next gen product rather than purpose. Like literally everybody's got AI. So honestly, there's very little you can tell me about the product that's going to tickle me or get me excited. But you've talked about purpose, which is interesting to me because purpose has long taken a battering in certain circles. If you look at, the way Ritson talks about purpose, he has been bashing purpose on the head as a kind of a trendy but meaningless nice to have for marketers for a long time. But your
Because
allies,
most people treat it as trendy and meaningless.
yeah,
They don't treat it as something. So the reason I'm talking about purpose, and no, I don't like we're going to put a rainbow on our logo for 3 weeks in a month. No, that is just pointless. That's bandwagon hopping, and I hate that. Purpose should be, I actually talked about it as culture, and these are people I want to work with. So it's how you show up as a company,
yeah.
perhaps, is more of what I want to hear about.
I went to I went to an event a couple of nights ago put on by the Connection Career Collective, which is quite an astonishing. It's not just a network thing or a networking organization. It's run by two brilliant women called Melanie Mills and Becky Glover, and it's a year old because we had its year long birthday, its first year birthday party the other night, and it is an incredible collection and gathering of women who literally the organization is there for support and advocacy and uh, encouragement and championing women through various challenges and journeys of business. And I was asked to go to one of their events by a founder of mine who's close to Melanie. I'd already had Melanie at his bidding, at Josh's bidding, my founder's bidding. I'd already had a Melanie, who runs the CCC, on the podcast talking about the power of mentoring. Had no idea that she was at the top of this organization. By the way, they both have really heavy, intense full-time jobs plus families. But they run this organization around genuinely just supporting and finding out how you can help. And I went to this event back in February. It was really, really low key if you look at it through the eyes of venue and budget. It was like in the empty office of or the empty floor of an office block, an unused floor. So it was literally low budget. There was about 100 of us there. There was about 10 men and 90 women, let's say. And I asked, I was there early enough to obviously to look over the buffet and make sure that I knew where where the drinks were. But I asked one
Right.
of the sort of the key people, what am I doing here? Like, this is an event for women, run by women. Like, what am I doing here? She said, we take it very, very seriously that this is not just for and about women. We take it very, very seriously that this needs to include men as well. And we're looking for allies, to be mentors, to be sponsors, to be partners. And I said, what does that mean to you? Because again, it's a word bandied about really easily, that allyship thing. What would I need to do to be an ally? And she said, well, it starts with being here. But it also goes as far as not just the easy bits, making sure that there are women on your panel, but actually taking to the board a demand that your female colleagues in the same jobs are paid and remunerated in the same way. So being quite open, our best allies volunteer themselves as open about their salaries, like utterly transparent. Just they tell us what they earn so that we have a benchmark for what our members should earn. And it's really, really powerful. And every single time I go to any of these events by the CCC, they don't leave you alone. They literally have figured out you're coming. They figure out where you are strong, and they find somebody in that crowd who might benefit from your help. And they put them in front of you and say, I want you. They say, I want everyone to walk away from this event today knowing someone that they can help, and they're going to do it. And so they put people in front of you and say, this woman is looking for this kind of job. She would benefit from a coffee with you and an introduction and blah, blah, blah. And the other night they had a really fabulous event. It was a panel. Melanie's 8-year-old daughter, did the intros, which was just as hilarious and as heartwarming as you can imagine. But it's hard allyship, and that feels that sort of, there's a feeling in the room. It's like, I am privileged to be here watching these people give up all of their time for no other reason than there might be somebody I can help in here. That's literally the reason we go. And so to me, that makes for a much more interesting event than your big B2B Ignite kind of things where, we're all treated to great food in a corporate setting and there's 7 stages and there's all the things you've heard before. That makes for much more interesting conversation. I don't know why we are blessed as journalists or former journalists or editors with what they call a nose for a story, but you always know when there's one there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've really hit the nail on the head, metaphorically speaking, about what matters when it comes to what we want to do as journalists. Those are the sort of stories we want to tell. Why do we want to tell them? Because they're likely to have an impact. They are literally going to change something. So when we talk about that kind of event, which I'd seen that you'd put up on LinkedIn and which I'd like to follow up with as well, thanks for the story, pal, is that we know that when we write something, when we put that out there, it's not just an ego polish for the company involved. A woman will read that. A person of diminished resources. There's so much I could go into. I'm a marketing journalist, as you know, primarily. But it's an industry that favors middle-class white people. Anyone from a minority or from an economically disadvantaged situation finds it much harder to get into that industry. The more stories we can write that put people who will help. Have you ever heard that phrase that's often told to children, sort of preteens, when they're going out into the world on their own for the first time? And they're worried and they're nervous, and you're worried for them. You tell them, look for the helpers.
Yeah.
Always look for the helpers. And in business, that is true as well. Events like that, look for the helpers.
Yeah.
Stories like that will show you the helpers. And it's so vital, so vital. And so that's why we're interested. That's what makes a great story. Yeah, as a result, someone will buy your product. Good, great, go you. It'll give you the brand salience. People
Yeah.
will remember your name.
Yeah.
They're going to remember a damn sight more if you've been the helper than if you've gone, hey, we use AI.
So let's just recap so far. So far, everybody's got a product. What's your story? right? We've got, if you are going to put your founder at the heart of a campaign and have them, he or she, be the face of and the voice of, it can't be enough that they know the company and know the product. It can't be enough that they are a great salesperson. Um, yes, they've got to be able to talk about the problem that their product or service solves in a really human way. Maybe the story is about their light of inspiration on founding the company if they are a founder, um, and the personal original problem that they face, that they suddenly had this hell bent determination to solve. But they need to prep. They need to know the story. They need to be able to coin it. They need to be able to listen to a PR or an editor in framing and capturing. Um, we've talked about how do we get to you? A press release is still the right way to get to you, or can I? Because I used to hate writing press releases. Okay,
I used to be in PR, but don't tell anyone.
when I left journalism and went into it, press releases are a bloody nightmare. The press releases I had to write about funding rounds for companies I was at were fairly formulaic and fairly easy. The only thing was, if you've got six different VC partners, they all have a view on which of them should come first in the list and blah, blah, blah. Um, but press releases were always a little bit less sexy to me than actually being able to phone up. I appreciate not everyone's got the relationships, but phone up and say, "Hey, Morag, listen, tell me if this makes a story for you, and if not, tell me what I need to do to it." But press releases have become a thing again in the age of AI and certainly GEO, because lots of companies now seem to be using them in a way that they weren't before. So whereas in your day, in my day, press releases were tightly narrated, structured, sharp, punchy, every line had to do a job. You'd have, let's say, you know what the headline is, you know what the top par is, you know what the next three pars are, and suddenly you find yourself after a while down at the boilerplate and everyone's got to have sign off. Now, it's pretty much, it doesn't really require a story to do a press release. People are there was a medium stage about 5-10 years ago where 10 years ago now, where people were releasing press releases that they didn't intend to be covered by anyone. And I'd say, well, firstly, why not? But also, thank God, because that's the most fucking boring piece of copy I've ever seen. So I am not phoning a journalist with that, just so you know. But their idea was to make sure it was there for the purposes of SEO. So they'd put it over the wires, it would dig into the and find a home in the underbelly of the internet, and it would be there for the purposes of SEO. Now with the GEO thing, it's because the LLMs are trawling credible sources for as much detail as they can find. I've found companies that are doing a really, really decent job of coming up on LLM searches and answers by just, forget boilerplate. It's literally, here's the story, here's a few parts, but then here's everything you ever needed to know about our company ever, from
Yeah.
product to people to performance to the last 4 quarters to the history of, and, boilerplate of 250 words is gone. It's like, it's now all boilerplate, and literally some of them are 5 or 6 pages long, because it just so happens that the science is, the more you put into this document, the more options an LLM has to trawl when it's
Yeah.
found you as a credible source. And so the press releases still strike at the heart of your daily output, or do they?
Almost never.
Is it more likely an email or a call?
Almost never. I'm hunting for a story and I tend to hunt people down. I get press releases. I very occasionally delve into my inbox to look and see if there's anything interesting news wise, or if there's a press agent in there, if there's a PR that I can get hold of. I've got figures for you. So, recent research, only 3% of PR pitches get any response whatsoever, negative or positive. 3%. Direct mail gets between 4.5 and just under 5.5. So you think, why bother? So short pitches are best. I get an email of somebody who says, this person's really interesting. This is why they're interesting. Would you like to speak to them? You've got to have a reason to exist beyond product pages.
So, Morag, if only 3% odd of the PR pitches made are successful, you said earlier there are still good PRs out there. What are they doing?
They're getting in touch direct. They're going, I know that you wrote about this. I know that you're interested in that. They send me short emails.
Yeah.
They position interesting people who have an interesting story to tell. They tell me about the context of why their story is interesting. Catalyst, of which I am the editor, very rarely trades in news. We do very brief news stories, something big or something specifically related to the Chartered Institute of Marketing. Much more often, we talk about theory, trends. We'll talk about big events. We'll talk about the World Cup, for example, but what it means for sponsors, what it means for sustainability. So send me your interesting spokespeople. Send me your views on interesting events or trends. I appreciate that's for me, not for something news-oriented like Marketing Week was and still is. But understanding who you're contacting. And I don't know if spray and pray works anymore. I used to be in PR, so for my sins, I used to do this. I remember vividly being PR for the MOBO Awards and standing there at 11 o'clock at night, sending 50 faxes with a cover page. Why the hell did we need cover pages? What was that about? And just standing there feeding this beast, knowing that, again, I'd get about a 3% return rate. So it is time consuming. It does depend on building relationships. There are, I think, 4 PRs in the marketing services sector that I know I can go to in extremis every single time, and they will find me somebody.
It's funny, isn't it? When we talk about the power of PR, and let's lay it out there just in case there are still some young or modern or B2B marketers that just haven't experienced this and don't get it. The power of PR is this. Firstly, you're not talking about yourself. Somebody else is talking about you. That's already powerful. Number 2, it's somebody with, by definition, credible. They're the editor or writer of a successful publication. Number 3, the fact that it's a successful publication means loads and loads of people are going to see it. Number 4, any kind of search, any kind of SEO or GEO is going to pick up on the credibility of the fact that you are, by definition, the award-winning or blah, 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 or written about, and add to the weight of, it's a health check, isn't it? It's a credibility health check when a bio or a prospect is weighing you up as a company. But the unsaid part is that when somebody gives you a good story, you go back to them again and again and again. The people who put guests on the couch of every morning TV show around the world have a black book of people that they know they can always rely on to come good in bare times. I remember I built my career at Marketing Week as a reporter by slagging off Coca-Cola because the most reliable person I had in my black book was Julian Mears, who used to do PR for Britvic, who was Pepsi's distributor. If Coca-Cola was as good as Julian was, it wouldn't have been so one-sided. But they only ever came back to me with we can't comment at this time. Well, Julian was more than happy to comment, right? And slip me trade secrets and all this stuff. So you're going to go back to the good ones again and again, and you'll plow. Once you know about a good story and a good company, even without a desperately quiet day, you'll go 6 months later, you'll go, I wonder if there's a follow-up.
Yeah.
That PR builds more PR, right?
And your friend and mine, Mr. Peter Markey, always on the other end of a phone, whichever company he happens to be at this week. And I just love listening to his stories. He always has something interesting to say. He tries to make himself available.
Pete's amazing. Pete knows the power of PR. By the way, let's not skim over the fact that Pete was a guest on Do More With Less about 5 or 6 weeks ago, and about 5 or 10 minutes ago when our incredible, relentlessly perfectionist producer, Andrea, was trying to get you to put yourself in a good position for the camera. You said out loud, Pete, I hope you're listening to this one. She said out loud, wait, Pete Markey was in a fucking broom cupboard. Why am I getting shouted at? And it's
because that's why he's Pete Markey, and that's why I'm Morag Cuddeford-Jones.
Yeah. So PR, good PR builds great PR, builds brilliant PR, because the thing that PRs know, that their output, their outcomes are consistently compounding on one another. If I read something about you in the FT, I'm going to note you down in my head, in my black book, in my journal of ones to watch, and come back to again for the next story.
Absolutely. And you get continuity, you get trust, you build trust. And I know there will be journalists, perhaps so-called proper journalists, Mark, ones who work for the broadsheets, who say, you don't want to get close to your contacts. You want to be able to be this really independent, visionary journalist digging in the dirt for the nuggets of gold that are going to be the next big broken story. But there is a lot to be said in industry publications in particular for building relationships with journalists, because people are more honest. They are less guarded. They're more willing to reveal, if not the flaws, then the chinks in their armor. Because we can then get to the real story. It can be helpful. There is nothing helpful about painting the sunniest side of everything. Like Coca-Cola not commenting because they wouldn't possibly want to say anything potentially negative. Show where it's rough around the edges. Have honest conversations. Everybody benefits. We are not the Sun. I am under no illusions. I am not a tabloid journalist. I want a story that in many ways is mutually beneficial. Marketing Week was our B2B tabloid. It was ready to hoist someone on their own petard if they needed it. And I'm not going to soft soap everyone, but I've got a great relationship with a number of CMOs, marketing directors, procurement execs, all across the whole breadth of the industry, who can tell me the truth, who can tell me where to look. And that is far better than PRs pissing away 97% of their time sending out press releases.
I did journalism for the broadsheets, and I also did journalism for Marketing Week. And the journalism and the work I did, and to an earlier point of yours, I think the impact the stories I wrote made 100 times more powerful at Marketing Week than the Sunday Telegraph. The Sunday Telegraph, you were there fighting for the top spot in a business section. And it didn't even matter what you wrote about. You just wanted that top above the fold, right? The Marketing Week stuff that we did was absolutely different level. And again, to your point, to rescue Coca-Cola from purely bad press on this podcast, I spent 2 or 3 years on the way up quite happily nailing Coca-Cola on mistakes that they made because they chose never to engage with responding properly. And then when they did their 125th anniversary in 2011 and invited 25 journalists from around the world to come and stay with them and be with them and get full access to everyone across the board, across the leadership team, and sit in some really, really powerful sessions for 3 or 4 days in Atlanta to meet the chief exec and chairman, they chose me. But they said, listen, you've been fucking us over for years. So we need to know that you're on good behavior if we have you out here. We'll tell you the truths, but don't go snooping around and misbehaving, okay? And I said, okay, if we've got trust, we've got trust. And they opened up, and I had private interviews with very, very, very senior people within Coke who said, yeah, in the 90s, we absolutely got too arrogant and we priced our vendor distributed products according to the weather, which is totally cynical. And we believed our own hype, and then there was New Coke, and we almost brought the company to its knees in the 90s because we just started acting out, and we've had to learn those lessons. And I said, I'm going to report all this. They said, we're telling you because we know you're going to report it. I did a 6-page feature, which is still one of the biggest and best pieces of journalism I feel I ever wrote. I'm so proud of it. And it was behind closed doors at the world's biggest brand. And it was all the good stuff, but also all the secrets and all the dark times, right? And the following year, one of the top, in fact, the top communications professional on the board came to London to have dinner with some people, and he invited me to dinner and said, I just want you to know that some of the article that you wrote, we put into great big PDFs, wall size, and we've they're on the walls of the Coca-Cola offices to remind us of how close we came to felling this great company. And you go, wow,
You, Shweki, holding Coke to account.
yeah, now I drink enough of this stuff.
I've got a good story for you that's almost completely the opposite. So I wrote a story for Brand Strategy magazine. For those of you who are thinking, Brand Strategy magazine, where have I missed this amazing tome?
Loved it.
It
I
was
loved it.
it was same stable as Marketing Week. It's older, nerdier cousin that doesn't often leave its bedroom more than once a month, a
It's the
monthly.
coolest magazine I ever never got to be a part of.
It was more of a journal than a mag. We couldn't do news monthly without as much internet at the time, so we had to be a bit more long form research. And I wanted to do a profile of a well-known posh luggage company, very, very English in heritage, because in my PR days, I'd worked with them, not as a client, but as a sort of partner thing. And they were all over it. PR was a friend, let's do it. It wasn't to soft soap them, it was just to say, it was a profile. This is where this company has got to today. It had been experiencing some interest from foreign investors, etc. And so I wrote what I thought was not an unalloyed puff piece, but a decent profile of a British luxury goods company that was fairly could be stood up in fact. And I think I may have mentioned at one point saying it was a bit tricky before they got this investment from abroad, but they seem to be back on an even keel. The PR went batshit. How could you do this to us in print? How could you tear us apart like this? Tear you apart? I said you might have had a wobbly week and it was all fine now. I mean, really, the levels of disillusionment were strong with this one.
Yeah.
So sometimes you get a Coca-Cola and sometimes you get an English luggage company that has skin a lot thinner than its
Yeah.
oyster skin bags.
Yeah. It's amazing. You do get those calls as a journalist saying, you've literally just ruined our cause. We are so angry with you. Is there anything we can do now? Can we turn back time? Can we retract it? All this stuff.
Who can fire you? It's like,
Yeah. Morag, as ever, it's been an absolute pleasure. So Morag Cuddeford-Jones, editor of Catalyst magazine, the magazine of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, plus freelance writer for a host of others, and with about as an experienced a brand and marketing writer as we have here in the UK. But also a friend. It's been such a pleasure. This has been Do More with Less, and this should be for all of you and your bosses, how to sensationally avoid brilliant PR. Thank you so much for taking the time, and we'll see you very soon.
thanks, Mark. Been a pleasure.